When clients are left to figure things out on their own, friction enters the process. When you design the path, the ideal choice becomes easier for them to see. Hi there, Lens Legends. Welcome to another episode of the Portrait Profit Show, where we focus on the business side of photography. I'm your host, Jim Landers, your guide on the business side. The Portrait Profit Show is brought to you by Digital Pro Lab and Landers Photography School. For Digital Pro Lab, Amanda and her wonderful, amazing team. In fact, let me put them up on the screen. There we go. Amanda and her amazing team are just, you're going to be so impressed. I recommend that you give them a shot if you haven't already. Some of you don't print. All the more reason to print. I mean, you've heard that there's advantages to doing it. You've heard that you just a different feeling that you get. Oh my gosh, printing changes the game. It's a total game changer. And when you work with Digital Pro Lab, you're working with people who care, because Amanda hires great people. Not someone who's here today, gone tomorrow, not someone who's just after a paycheck, someone who actually loves doing what they do. And the side effect is your work, your photographs are amazing. Go to digitalprolab.com. I'll put that on the screen real quick. Digitalprolab.com. Oh, you're going to love the difference that Digital Pro Lab makes. Also, and sponsored by my own company, Landers Photography School. I do both the photography side and the business side. On the photography side, I've got both group classes and private classes. Same thing with the business side, although the business side is more on the individual private classes. But you see the screen, the address on the screen, calendly.com/photo school /15MIN. That's a direct link to my calendar. Put yourself on it. You get a free 15-minute private session with me to talk about you and your goals. Take advantage of that. Take those off of the screen. I want you to make comments and ask questions throughout this lesson today. Going over to the comment section, I want you to enter in right now, #live. That tells me that you're watching either on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube, because we're simulcast to several different places. And for those who are watching the replay, please comment #replay. I also request that you share the Portrait Profit Show, because that's how people find out about it. You found out because someone told you, so you return that favor. Let other people know about the Portrait Profit Show. I want to comment that there are many ways to run a portrait photography business. And these are those approaches differ in how the work is structured and what you want your clients to receive once everything's complete. The way that structure is designed determines whether your client experiences clarity or friction as they move through their experience with you, the decisions that they make. Some photographers build their work around short, high-volume sessions with a predefined setup and simple, efficient process. Others offer sessions with more flexibility, delivering images through an online gallery and allowing the client to decide what to do with them afterward. There are also photographers who work within structured packages, combining session time with a set number of images or products, and those who guide clients through the entire creative process, as well as the print and product decisions after the photography is complete. Now, each of these approaches is built around a different way of working, and each leads to a different kind of result. In this lesson, the focus is on custom portraiture. How many of you think you do custom portraiture? Let me know in the comments. Just say me, or yes, or I do custom work. Custom portraiture is where the work is built around creating a finished result rather than simply delivering digital files. So custom portraiture, you may think, well, I designed the set. Yeah, but you did many sessions with it and you photographed 50 different families or individuals with it. So not the kind of custom work I'm talking about. I'm talking about individualized custom work. Like if you went to a furniture store and you ordered a custom made uh, couch, it's not something that was sitting on the floor that everybody could buy one of. It's something that you created just for you. It's got the specific size that you need, the specific materials that are on it that you need. Custom work. It's not based on repetition. It's not based on speed. And it's not left open-ended for the client to resolve on their own. What you choose to create is shaped over time, beginning with an understanding of what matters to both you and your ideal client, and continuing through to an outcome that has been fully carried through. Now, what does that mean? It means that the process requires more than simply creating the images. All of us can press the button and hand over digital files. Everybody can do that. Every neighbor can do that. If you don't do more than that, are you really a pro? I mean, if you can't do more, if you don't regularly do more than what the neighbor could have done, that what everybody else could have done, really, what's the difference? So it requires a clear plan. Doing custom, complete work, it requires a clear plan that connects each step from the beginning to the end. Now, it depends on what you do as to what that end might be. Because if you're a headshot photographer, the end is digital files. If you're a family portrait photographer, that may be one of the uses that your client has for it. But it is not unusual for a photograph to wind up on the wall. That is complete. Near the beginning of that process, the client and the photographer work together to decide what the photography will become when all the work is complete. This is the point where direction is established, priorities are clarified, and the path from the photography session to a finished result begins to take shape. For many photographers, this is where the experience starts to feel less predictable, though. The photography itself may be strong, and the client may be genuinely pleased with what has been created. Yet somewhere between the session and the final outcome, the next steps are not clearly defined. When that happens, the client's left to make decisions without a clear understanding of what those decisions are going to be leading to. And in that situation, most people they simplify by choosing what feels manageable rather than what have been possible with a clearer direction. This is often interpreted as a pricing issue or a lack of demand. In many cases, it's neither of those. What's happening instead is the path from creation to completion is simply not clearly defined. When that path is unclear, the client is left to fill the gaps for themselves. And those decisions tend to fall short of what they would have chosen with clear professional guidance, not because they want less, but because they are working without a clear understanding of what's possible to move forward with. They're not an expert in this process. That responsibility begins with you or belongs to you. That is why the responsibility for that clarity rests with the photographer. This does not mean removing the client's voice or deciding everything on their behalf. I mean, it depends on your business model, of course, but it means working together to understand what matters, forming a plan that connects to a finished result, and guiding each step so that every important decision is resolved. When that process is in place, well, something changes. The client is no longer navigating decisions alone, and they begin to recognize what they want as it becomes clearer in front of them, even if they could not have described it at the beginning, because a lot of them can't. But that's why you're there. The way those choices are presented matters, because when offers are structured without directions or without any direction at all, clients are left to sort through them on their own. But when they are structured and with intention, the path forward becomes clear. As the result becomes clear, the decisions become easier. And when the decisions become easier, clients move forward with confidence. They move forward now. They don't say, I'll think about it and get back to you. This is what it means to make the best choice obvious. Chapter 1. There are specific moments in your process when a client must decide how to move forward. And those moments carry more weight than most photographers realize. The photography session may have gone well. The images may be strong. And the client may be genuinely pleased with what's been created, but the outcome may not yet be determined. It is determined in the decisions that follow. Those decisions become easier and are made with confidence when the path is clear. Even when a client is excited about their images, uncertainty begins to surface when they're asked to choose without a clear structure guiding them, helping them to choose. The excitement is there, but it's now competing with hesitation. That hesitation does not come from a lack of interest. It comes from being placed in a position where the next step is not clearly defined. When a client doesn't know what to do next, they slow down. We don't want that. They revisit other options. They delay decisions, and they look for something that feels more certain. In that environment, decisions tend to move toward what is easiest to choose, not necessarily what is best, not necessarily to what's most meaningful. This is where many photographers misinterpret what's happening. It can appear the client's holding back and that they are being cautious with their investment, with their spending, when in reality, they are navigating uncertainty without guidance. The structure of that decision has placed them in that position. When the process is designed with intention, that moment changes. The client is not left to sort through options alone. The path forward is visible. Choices are clear. Each step connects naturally to the next. It makes sense. In that environment, the client moves forward with confidence, not because they were persuaded, it's because the decisions made sense. They could see themselves in what you're doing. The decision feels natural. The outcome reflects that clarity. This is where structure begins to shape results. So let's talk about why structure changes what clients choose. Chapter 2. People like to believe they make decisions based on logic. I mean, we enjoy the idea that we carefully weigh options, compare value, gather information, and then select the outcome that best fits our needs. In reality, decision making rarely works that way. Humans are constantly looking for signals. We look for patterns, direction, and clues that help us understand what deserves our attention and where we should focus our energy. This happens in nearly every aspect of life. A crowded parking lot suggests that it's a popular restaurant. A long line outside of a business may communicate the value that that business is bringing, even though you may not know what the value is the business is about. Even something as simple as seeing a group of people standing together, unrelated to business, but seeing a group of people standing together causes other people to look in that direction, find out what's going on. Clients may know they may value family, connections, milestones, the professional branding. They may know they love the images created during a photography session. What they often do not know is how to move from appreciation to decision. When options are presented without direction, clients begin doing the work themselves. They compare, analyze, eliminate, revisit, and attempt to build certainty on their own. Instead of moving toward what they value most, they often begin searching for what feels easiest to understand. A photographer may believe that they are creating freedom by presenting many choices. But too many choices is not very good because it leaves the client with an experience that is very different than what you think. More choices frequently creates more time spent in consideration. That is friction, that is potential frustration. I mean, I see posts all the time. I saw one just before the show about someone who said that they promised 7 to 10 images but created 100 and they're all good and they don't know what to do. Huh. Maybe don't create so many? How hard is this? But it means that that person didn't plan ahead of time. That's what it means. They just went with the flow. Now, is that necessarily bad? No, because that may be part of their experience, part of the structure. But they were sharing that they only were going to give 7 to 10, and they didn't know how to narrow it down to that because they didn't want to get rid of those images. So don't create them to begin with. Or create a different business model that does incorporate all that stuff. Either way would be fine, but going in without a plan, come on. Again, the neighbor could have done that. Structure changes this experience because structure communicates priorities. The way options are arranged, presented, and emphasized, this may be quietly, but it's telling the client where attention belongs. I mean, this is even before they've chosen to work with you, before you have images to present. You're presenting someone else's images, or they're looking at your website, your social media. The way your options are arranged, presented, and emphasized tells clients where attention belongs. Whether intentional or not, photographers are already doing this. The only question is whether the process is being designed on purpose. You're in control. There's zero reason why it shouldn't be designed. When the structure is intentional, clients stop feeling like they are standing in front of a wall of decisions and begin feeling like they are walking down a quiet, calm, pretty path where one step naturally leads to another. The process feels easier and confidence increases. At first, this can look like a form of manipulation. I know first time someone presented this idea to me, I was thinking it was manipulation. Um, it may feel that way, especially if you've been taught or you avoid anything that feels related to sales or selling. But once you understand the purpose, it becomes something very different. Manipulation pushes people toward what benefits the seller. Guidance helps people recognize the choice that best serves the client. And when you care about your clients, which you know you do, you say you do, I believe that you do. When you care about your clients, that is exactly the work you are supposed to do. If you haven't already, hit that like button or hit that love button each time you hear something that you like or resonate with. Also, if you'd like today's handout, just send me an email, jim@portraitprofits.com, jim@portraitprofits.com. Tell me the date or the name, the title of the show, and I will send you the handout for that show. I do ask for donations. It's just $10. If you don't want to pay it, don't. I'll still send it to you. All you gotta do is tell me you want it. All right. So next chapter. Let's see, chapter 3, designing the path. Once photographers begin thinking intentionally about structure, a natural question follows. If structure influences decisions, what should that structure actually look like? Many photographers unintentionally create a process where every option just appears equal. almost as if they don't care which option a client chooses as long as they choose something and a payment follows. Packages are listed just one right after the other, each with similar visual weight, similar descriptions, and a little guidance around what makes one path more appropriate than the other. Clients are then asked to sort through everything and determine what they believe makes the most sense. I mean, maybe that sounds helpful. It feels fair. But in reality, it often places more work on the client. It creates a friction point. Imagine walking into a restaurant where every single item on the menu was given equal emphasis. No chef's recommendations, no featured selections, no specialties, no images. 100 choices presented with equal importance. Well, freedom's present because you've got choice, but direction isn't present. People do appreciate choice, but they also appreciate leadership. This doesn't necessarily mean removing options. It means creating a path through the options. I'm going to simplify this because I know that this can lead your mind in a couple of different directions, but I want to focus. One approach I have recommended for years is designing choices so one option clearly stands out as the strongest overall recommendation. Not because it costs more. In fact, that option is often positioned in the middle of three choices because it delivers the most complete value for the type of client that you want to serve. The middle option frequently becomes the place where value, simplicity, and results naturally intersect. It feels intentional. It feels complete. It gives clients a place to begin rather than asking them to create direction from scratch. I'll put up an image so you can see that better. And let's make that big. There we go. So this structure, it has just three options. This would be you giving your client three options to choose from. A base level, I'm calling it a starting point in this graphic, where the it's just an entryway. It's less than the average sale that you want to make, but it causes an easy way for someone to do business with you so they can see what you're all about, the value that you bring. And then maybe the next time they'll get the regular the choice that you actually want them to have. But you're making the average sale this best choice. Whatever it is that you want is your average sale, whatever is right for your business, for your life. You have an amount that you want to bring in. You're creating a value. You're adding things to this that make it the obvious choice for your ideal client. And you choose you put that in the middle. You have a starting point. You've got best choice, and then you have the Whopper. I'll come to that here in a minute because let's do it now. The most expensive option, I call this the Whopper because that's what the person that I learned it from, Chuck Lewis he lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's what he called it. The Whopper is the option that makes people smile when they see it. It's incredibly complete. It includes things clients never expected could be included because it reflects a level of service and imagination they may never have considered possible. Let me give you an example. Years ago, for weddings, one of my Whopper offerings, and I had more than one, but one of the Whopper offerings included a private lunch or dinner for 15 people at a local country club. While guests enjoyed the event, I would present the newly created images from their wedding set to music. For portrait sessions, I adapted the same idea into an in-home catered event where the finished frame portraits were installed, and I covered them with a velvet piece of material that had my logo on it, so the image wasn't seen. I could do a reveal experience. For either, invitations were custom designed using images from the photography session itself, sent out to them via snail mail. They could be done via email as well, but it's a different experience when it comes in the mail. Now, I would have a photographer there, or I would at least capture images myself, but I would also have video to capture the event for both the client and for my promotional use. That's the marketing side of it. 3-option structure: a starting point, a best choice, and the Whopper. People often assume these larger offerings exist simply to raise prices. And while, so you can get a higher profit. And while there is certainly more profit in the Whopper, that is an oversimplification because it misses the point entirely. The purpose is to expand what clients believe is possible. I want them to have lots of wow moments when they work with me. I'm sure you do too. When people see a thoughtfully designed path, they begin recognizing opportunities and outcomes they may never have imagined on their own. Even though few choose the largest option, seeing that option changes how they understand the choices around it. The option I most want clients to choose feels practical, complete, appropriately positioned. Even though my average sale is much higher than the average sale in my area, they still feel like that number is practical. It's less than the high one, so therefore it's justified in their mind. By the way, this is all called merchandising. Merchandising. When structure is intentional, when your merchandising structure is intentional, the best choice does more than stand out. It's a win for everyone. Let's talk about chapter 4, guiding without pushing. For many photographers, this is where discomfort begins to surface. The moment the conversation shifts from creating images to helping clients make decisions, which some of us call sales, it's an uneasy feeling, and an uneasy feeling can appear. Some begin worrying that guidance will feel like pressure. Yeah, when it's not done correctly, that's correct. Others become concerned that recommendations will come across as a sales tactic. Come on. Again, if you're doing it wrong, maybe it will. Most of us simply do not want to be perceived as pushy. Maybe there's a few that don't care, but that's not the norm. Most creatives don't want to be seen as pushing. They want to be wanted, but they don't realize that part of that is guiding. Most of us simply do not want to be perceived as pushy, so we pull back. And that reaction to guidance, what you're supposed to do, it makes sense in that when you think about it that way. Portrait photographers are generally caring people. They want clients to feel respected, appreciated, and comfortable throughout the entire process of working with us. Many entered photography because they love creating meaningful work and serving people. I mean, we didn't start a photography business because we dreamed of becoming sales professionals, yet it's part of what we do. Unfortunately, this concern often creates an unintended result. In an effort to avoid influencing decisions, photographers remove themselves from the process entirely. I mean, you couldn't do this pre-digital or pre-internet. You had to go through the entire process. All photographers had to create proofs, show those proofs, get a print order, print. Because a photographer didn't give out their negatives. Yeah, people knew what to do with negatives, but no photographer did that. But now that we've been doing digital for the last quarter of a century, photographers just backed off from that because the sales part makes them feel uncomfortable. It's because they've been doing it wrong or they've envisioned it incorrectly, which is more often the case. So therefore, the guidance really kind of disappears from the sales process. I'm not saying they're not guiding them through the photography session, because hopefully they are. But when it comes to the sales process, helping someone get what it is that they want, you don't even know for sure what that is. Now, you may think you do because of based on what it is that you do, you're doing all that. But truly, guidance is disappearing. Recommendations are disappearing. Leadership is disappearing. Clients are often given a group of images with no guidance of what they're supposed to do with those images next. The client is then placed in a role they never asked for. Instead of being cared for by an expert all the way through to the completion, they are expected to become an expert themselves. Now, I often give an example of a roofer, but this time I'm going to give an example of a physician. So I want you to imagine visiting a physician who carefully listens to your concerns, runs tests, gathers information, and then returns with your results. Imagine after all that, hearing, "Everything's ready. Here are 12 possible directions you can take. Let me know which one you think makes the most sense." I think most people would feel immediate uncertainty. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they are incapable of making decisions. They simply recognize that expertise exists for a reason. They want to be able to rely on the professional. Clients hire photographers for very similar reasons. They hire experience. They hire perspective. They hire judgment. They hire someone who understands possibilities that they cannot yet see. So guidance is not pressure. Guidance for sales is helping someone move forward with confidence. Pressure puts you as a photographer first. Guidance serves the client first. Pressure attempts to create movement regardless of outcome. Guidance creates movement by making the path easier to understand. Clients appreciate leadership when they believe it comes from a place of caring and a place of expertise. They appreciate someone helping remove uncertainty. They appreciate someone walking beside them rather than handing them a map and wishing them luck. I mean, think about your own life for a moment. Do you feel grateful when a business or individual gives you more work to do? Of course not. You want your clients to feel cared for. I know this. I know that's what you want. This is a service, and with a service, the goal is to remove work, not to add to it. So we're talking about the entire process. Part of what we're talking about is making it clear before they've ever had a chance to reach out to you what the options are and about how much it's going to cost. Ballpark. Maybe they have to reach out to you to find that information. It's all part of your process. It's all good if it's part of the plan. And then there's the part of it of afterwards, once everything is done. By the way, that's what next week will be about. We're talking about full service photography and what that actually means. And how to do that if you choose to do that as a business model. By the way, not everybody chooses to do that. It's just a path. We'll talk about that next week. Let's move on to the final chapter. This is auditing the path. At this point, I want you to think, how do I know if friction exists in my process? Fortunately, friction leaves clues. Clients rarely announce it directly. They don't say, "Your structure created uncertainty for me." Of course not. Instead, it tends to appear in smaller ways, often disguised as ordinary comments or behaviors that may become so common that photographers stop noticing them. Sometimes the client says they just need more time. Sometimes they ask to come back later, to think about it, and get back to you or share the information with the spouse. You've heard these reasons, these excuses to not make a decision now. None of these responses automatically indicates that there's a problem, and none should be viewed on the surface negatively. People make decisions differently, and thoughtful decisions are often good decisions. At least we hope. Patterns, though, we need to pay attention to those patterns. They deserve attention. If the same pauses happen repeatedly, the same thing, they keep on saying, "I need to visit with my spouse." You know how I dealt with, "I need to visit with my spouse first"? I made it where when we had the in-person visit, they've they've shared that they're interested in working with me. I go to their home and we talk about what's going on. Both parties had to be present if both parties were present. So if it was a single mom, obviously I wouldn't need that. But if it's a couple, I need the decision makers present. And so if I'm have an appointment today and someone calls and says, "Well, he's not going to be able to make it. He's really busy." I was like, "No problem. Let's reschedule it." And if she says, "Oh, we don't need he's good. We don't need him there." Yeah, we need him there. Because and if it would be the same thing as the reverse, she won't be able to make it. We need her there. We need mom and dad there if mom and dad are there. If only dad's there, well, we need dad. And I'm talking about family portraits in this instance. So if the same pauses, the same excuses happen repeatedly at the same places in your process, it's worth at least becoming curious as to why, what's going on here. Where do people slow down in your process? Where do they begin hesitating? Where do they start carrying work that perhaps should have been removed from their shoulders? Because you should be doing it. Many clients frequently struggle with deciding between too many options. Maybe they become uncertain after receiving an online gallery. Maybe they reach a point where the next step feels unclear and momentum slows. Those moments matter because friction rarely appears at random. Imagine walking through a path in the woods. If enough people consistently step around the same thing, the same area, they're not on that path temporarily. They're going across, they're cutting. That repeated movement reveals something. Maybe there's a fallen tree in the way. Maybe the ground becomes muddy. Maybe there's an obstacle people naturally avoid. Businesses behave similarly. Repeated hesitation often points towards a place where the process deserves some attention. The goal is to recognize where confusion repeatedly appears and determine whether the structure itself may be contributing to it. Your structure, the one you've planned for your clients or prospects to take. Now, the self-analyzation requires honesty because many photographers immediately assume the issue is price. I mean, I see this all the time. I have fewer bookings. Should I lower my price? Is the price the reason? Can people in my area afford that? Maybe they're thinking that there's just no client commitment in my area, or there's certain market conditions or certain economic conditions that are affecting the whole country, the whole world. Come on, these are excuses. While they might be true, they are still excuses. Sometimes those things matter. Often, however, the answer is closer. Sometimes the process simply asks the client to carry too much. When photographers begin auditing their process through this filter, this lens, opportunities start becoming visible. Places that once felt normal begin standing out as places for improvement. Moments that felt inevitable begin looking, well, adjustable because friction leaves clues. Once you recognize those clues, you can begin designing a path that helps clients move forward with greater confidence. Let me bring this lesson to a close. Clients rarely walk into portrait photography knowing exactly what they want. They have an idea, they want to look good, but they don't necessarily know exactly what they want or how to move from interest to a finished point or decision. They know they value the people they love. They know they want to remember things like milestones, relationships, accomplishments, moments that matter. They know they were excited enough to look for a photographer and choose you. What they often do not know is how to move from that excitement to a confident decision. So, throughout this lesson, we looked at friction and the way uncertainty quietly changes behavior. We looked at what happens when clients are left to sort through too many choices on their own and how intentional structure changes the way people move forward. We looked at the responsibility photographers carry and the difference between pressure and guidance, between doing sales in a pushy way, slick way, and doing sales in a way that guides your client in the directions they want to go. There is confusion, but photographers don't intend to create confusion. In fact, many create it for exactly the opposite reason. Yes, they are creating confusion. They are creating friction. They don't know it, but sometimes they're doing it because they care deeply about their clients and they want them to feel comfortable and free to choose. Ironically, that desire creates a process where clients are asked to carry more responsibility. They are asked to do some of the work. Guidance isn't pressure, guidance is service. Creating a path does not remove freedom, it removes uncertainty. It gives clients confidence. It helps people recognize possibilities they may have never known. It creates an experience where decisions become easier because direction becomes clearer. The side effect when you do this is often stronger sales. But sales, that was never the purpose. The purpose is helping clients reach a stronger outcome from their point of view. I want you to take a look at your own process. Notice where the clients are slowing down. Pay attention to repeated questions, repeated hesitation, and moments where people seem uncertain about what to do next. Because those places are pointing towards opportunities for you to make your structure better, your overall creative process better. When structure becomes intentional, the best choice does more than stand out. It becomes obvious. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. I want to tell you about the upcoming shows. And If you have liked the show, do me a favor, click that like button. If you know someone else who could benefit from this show, share it. It does sit on, let's say on Facebook, it's there for 30 days. On Instagram, they delete it immediately. And on our YouTube channel, it's there. But because this is a live, it's not in the same place. It's in a tab called Live. So when you go to a YouTube channel, you're seeing pre-recorded. You're not seeing live unless they have moved it to that spot. But there is, just go across the top. You've got several different options. One of them is live. If you click on live, it'll take you to all the live. So if you go to the Portrait Profits YouTube channel, it'll look like there's almost no videos there at all. But if you go to the live section, you'll see there's 200 plus videos there. Yeah, these are all created live. I'm not going through, and by the way, I create them live mostly because I don't like video editing. That's why. There's other reasons too, but that's the main one. I don't like to edit. I just want to get it done and move on to the next thing. Speaking of next thing, let's talk about the upcoming shows. You know, every single Monday, there's a new episode of the Portrait Profit Show. So let's talk about next week's show. In 1 week from today, we're going to be doing full service photography. Now, I told you this during the lesson today because they are kind of going hand in hand. But this is talking about full service photography. And I'm going to give you the analogy I just touched on, and you've probably heard me say before, because I want you to imagine a roofer. And maybe you can see this. Maybe you can't. I'm going to make this a little larger. Can I make that even bigger? Nope. All right. I think that's the largest I can make it. There's probably another way to make it bigger, but obviously I'm not figuring it out quickly. So imagine a roofer handing you a bag of nails after they've taken the old roof off, put it in the roll-off dumpster. They're about ready to leave. The roofer hands you a bag of nails, points to a stack of shingles over there, and says the job's done. But it's not. But you know how to use a hammer and nails? That's what happens every time a client's left to figure out what to do with their images. So in next week's episode, this is where I'll show you how to guide decisions so your work ends as something finished, not forgotten. 1 week after that, on June 1st at noon, is Dress to Impress. That is June 1st at noon. You know, over the years, how photographers dress at events, at portrait sessions, in fact, how everyone changes, everyone dresses, has shifted more casual in many cases. And because of that, what is or feels appropriate isn't always clear as it once was, which leads to the question, dress to impress? Or does it matter anymore? June 1st at noon. And I want to tell you about one more. I'm skipping one, but going over to June 15th at noon, custom photography project. You know, when a potential client asks for a custom photography project, the real question is rarely just, what should I charge? Now, when I say a custom photography project, it would be something that is not really found on your website. It's something that they would have to call you about and talk about what's going on so that you can create a custom quote so they can decide whether they're going to move forward with you or not. So you may think, well, I'm just coming up with a price. Well, it's more than that, Before you name a price, you need to define the need, the wants, structure the offer, separate your time from image usage, and guide the conversation with confidence. If you have ever felt unsure about how to price a photography opportunity, this episode on June 15th will help you approach it with a clearer path. Hey, put these on your schedule. It's every single Monday that we have the Portrait Profit Show. And you're so busy. You're really busy. You may want to be busier with some photography jobs, maybe, but you're busy. You're going to forget about the Portrait Profit Show. It's not the number one thing going on in life. It's just an important thing to me. And I'm hoping that it is for you as well. But you're going to forget because you're busy. Unless you put it on your calendar so that you're reminded the Portrait Profit Show is every single Monday at noon, with one exception, the second Monday of each month. We do move it to 6:30 in the evening. So add these free lessons to your calendar. Lens Legends, take a little time today to look at your process through a different filter. Follow the path your clients walk and pay attention to where they pause, where questions repeat themselves, and where uncertainty begins to appear. Friction often hides in places that feel normal simply because they've been there for a long time. Small changes in that structure can create surprisingly large changes in the results. A clear path creates more confidence. I'll show you one last image. And this is that the largest I can make it? I think it is. Yeah. All right. So friction versus a clear path. The friction creates hesitation. A clear path creates confidence. We all want more confidence, but we also want that confidence to be able to be felt by our client. Too many of us have friction points, too many friction points in our business. And again, we don't realize it. Maybe you're offering too many options. Maybe the next step is not clear, not as clear as you think it is. If a decision is slowing, if someone constantly says, I need to think about it, then your experience needs to change. Your structure needs to change. That's a red flag saying there's opportunity here for potential improvement. When you have that clear path, the best option is emphasized. The next step is obvious. Confidence increases in both you and your client. The client chooses more fully. They engage more fully. There we go. Stronger decisions create a better experience for the people you care about. So remember, the goal is not to pressure people into buying more. If that's your perception, then you need to look at it from a different point of view, because that's not the goal. The goal is to care for clients well enough that they never feel uncertain in the process. When you guide with intention and remove unnecessary friction, the best choice becomes easier to recognize. And what feels like better sales, because you're going to wind up with better sales as a result of these changes. So what feels like better sales is simply the result of better service. It's the side effect. Thank you, Lens Legends, for your time and attention here today. And thank you for the hard work that you put into building a photography business. I'll see you next Monday at noon for Landers Photography School and Digital Pro Lab. I'm Jim Landers, the host of the Portrait Profit Show. I look forward to watching you grow. You guys are amazing. You are awesome. And I love spending time with you. Bye for now.